Check, check. Peace, world. What's good? What's good? Wyking in the building, Africatown Media Studios. This is the AC. You know, we come to check out what's going on, what's the activity, what's active, you know, in the Central. Active in the Central, the AC. For all the Bulldogs, y'all know what the AC was, you know. That's a place you didn't go if you might not have been ready for the, you know, for the smoke. But we're going to get into some things. I got a good brother, you know, in the studio today with us. AB, as we know you know what I'm saying? They might know you as other terms in professional settings, and we can get into that. But, yeah, man, let's get into it. Aaron Bossett, man, affectionately known as AB to all us who grew up in the Central District, definitely has been constantly active on various different initiatives. And we just want to come in today and talk about some current statistics that many people already knew, but you know, when you see a picture, like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so it's been active on the Africatown social media. And so, man, welcome, my brother.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here in the AC.
Back in the AC. Back in the AC. There we go. So, you know, for those that don't know, you know, just give a little background on yourself.
All right. Well, I was referred to as AB. Name is Aaron Bossett, Mr. Bossett. AB is funny to me. When people refer to me as AB, I know exactly from when and where I met him. Like, it tells a whole story in itself. So I've been knowing all these brothers for a long time. Grew up in Central District, Garfield grad. Been around for a long time, man. Currently, CEO, Axum Analytics, black-owned data analytics company. Trying to bring diverse data to the game. Getting people to understand how to use tech more often in our communities, things like that.
You've been innovating for a minute, man, on different levels. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if people remember, you know, as the community was dispersing, you know, with the gentrification and all that. I know it was about 10 years ago. You founded or was one of the co-founders of the Black Love Softball Sundays. Huh?
Yeah, so Black Love was actually put together by Dennis Beaver from the Facts. That was a collection of some old school heads. So, like, who had hit me? I think Ted Evans hit me. Then Solo hit me. If you guys don't know Solo, rest his soul, R.I.P. Dorian Dinish, hit me and was like, yo, let's go. It was a Father's Day. It was a little rainy, and they were like, let's go play some softball. Man, ain't nobody gonna play no softball. A bunch of brothers showed up. Man, and we had a ball. And the next morning, man, Solo, man, hit me. He was like, man, AB, man, that was live, man. We got to go do that again. And so it just popped off from there, man. It was actually a collective of people in the beginning that really got it going. So I can't take credit that for myself. That was straight community.
Yeah, I just jumped in. I think I got it from you, you know, and jumped in, you know, rekindling the days on that, you know, Field of Dreams there, huh?
I hope y'all know Wyking can go. You guys, Wyking can play that game, man, for real.
Man, and even more recently with the, you know, just the entrepreneurship, homeschooling and entrepreneurship, you know, a lot of people may have seen, but the Stay Woke initiative, the coffee youth entrepreneurship you did, father-son thing. I mean, that was, you be setting a lot of things off, man, that, you know.
I just don't play by the rules, man. I go by what works, man, not what they telling us works, man. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, brought us to this table was that discussion of, economics, right? Yeah. And the wealth and the gap in wealth and gap in pay, right? And that was kind of what brought me to the table, but that's kind of what also led me into homeschooling as well, starting to see that. Hold on, man.
Yeah. Let's just check in on it. I mean, what was it? Last week, Seattle Times published an article that talked about the income disparities in good liberal, everybody's included Seattle, right? And it said that the median income for whites was $103,000, and the median income for blacks was $47,000. So not even half.
Not even half.
I mean, and this is in 2019, and you would think, is this Johannesburg or is this, you know, Seattle?
Right.
Yeah. So just, you know, for the people to know about that. What was your thought? I saw some, you know, some real, you know, robust conversations going on about, you know, what's the sources of that. I mean, for a lot of people, I know that wasn't a revelation, but to just see it so clear. I mean, it's obvious that we're not participating equitably in the economy and the growth, you know, sectors and all this knowledge base and technology base and construction base and health science. But I mean, man, we don't got no space, right? And so,
Man.
what are your thoughts on that?
So when I saw it wasn't shocking to me because of one of the other things that I do is I'm the president of the BCC, Black Cannabis Commission, and I've been fighting and talking about legal inclusion into the legal cannabis space with black folks for a long time. And to get in it takes capital, it takes money. So you look and you start looking at investment groups that could be formed in the community. You start looking at banking solutions and you realize, man, we don't have land, we don't have a chamber of commerce. And then you start looking at why and you start seeing those numbers. So I was already aware of those numbers. And when they came out, the most shocking piece to me about what came out was the denial by our own people in the community that it was real.
So some people say, oh, they just cook the
They
books,
just,
right?
making that
They
up.
say numbers lie. What, men lie, women lie.
We don't take the census.
Numbers.
It was
numbers
all these excuses, and it was alarming to me because I'm like, yo, hold on, we gotta acknowledge what some of these issues are, and if we ain't acknowledging, we got some deep rooted issues right here that we got to take care of. And the first thing is our education system in Seattle is absolutely one of the worst in America, but we don't address that.
But hold on, you said we don't take. I mean, you don't have to take the census. I mean, if you go to work, you got a kid in school like this. They count unless you just came over here and are totally off the books. You're accounted for,
right?
Whether you fill out that paper or not.
I heard a lot of excuses, man. I heard a lot of excuses for why that number existed. And then you start really trying to talk to people. Oh well, they don't have a job, and you're like, that's part of the problem. There's not enough of us working, and we get remedial jobs. We train the person that ends up becoming our boss.
But now, black people been in Seattle in the CD for like almost 140 years before Washington was even a state. So how is it that we're not, how are we at this low state in the in the economy? Why aren't we working like that? After we've been here as this bust and this boom and tech, we was here the whole time the tech industry is growing. What's your thoughts on why are we not a part of these economies?
To me, that's a layered question. First things first, education. We weren't educated or given the tools to even be considered for that jobs. There's a lot of people from foreign countries who have more job skills and a higher education and are more qualified to get the jobs that are offered in our city because our schools and our education systems ain't preparing us for the basics. Twofold is the drug war, crack, period. I don't think people look at the ramifications of really what that did.
Speak to that.
To me, the word crack, if doing the research and the work that I've been doing, is bigger than a piece of drug, something that was cooked up in a Pyrex pot. It broke up generations of family. It cracked the family structure. It cracked the respect between elders and youth. It cracked the need for education, for understanding why education is important too. It cracked the entire family structure and the backbone of the black community, and you just see these generational divides now hurting our youth in a way that's just like woof.
Man, but if we listen to the music, it sounds like, like we should be on, from that,
We don't control the music, though. Those main media outlets are owned by the same people that benefited off of those.
So you're saying they basically they're marketing for prison cells.
Why wouldn't I?
Okay.
Why wouldn't I?
I feel that. So, yeah, but get a little more into that in terms of, and also, so I think you highlighted why we're not in Washington State is like 46 in math, like for everybody.
We're 48th in education, period.
So that's across the board, black, white,
across
whatever.
the board. And if you break that number down, Seattle Public Schools recent survey says that the black student is educated at 5 grades below their white counterparts. That means our black children are graduating with a 7th grade education.
Wow. And they're not ready for this economy.
They can't get through college.
So yeah, let's let's talk about where that this is a new industry that you really focus in. But I get you're in the middle. You like you said tech, and cannabis. So do you see those as pathways to change that number? Like what are real solutions, because we see the number, we talk about it, a lot of people say, oh, whatever the reasons, but are there solutions that you see?
For me, being on the cannabis space, being in the cannabis space and being somebody who's advocating, I was actually on the business side of it, got sucked into the social side of it, the social, economic side of it, and kind of started learning more about it. And when you understand the economic opportunity that legal cannabis provides. And legal cannabis also talking about hemp as well, right? Like, let's lump it all together. That hemp and cannabis alone is a $1 trillion industry that doesn't take college degrees, that we can own from manufacturing, from farm to face, and everything in between. Right? We can be the manufacturers, the scientists, the engineers. We can hire lawyers, marketing, design, people who do these studios, videos need to be made for cannabis, internal messages and external messages. Like, it's a massive, massive job creation industry. And when I see that they used it at one point in time, from when Harry Anslinger started his marijuana campaign, you would never hear me use the word marijuana except for explain what it is. I don't think that a lot of people know that marijuana was created as a word of propaganda to harass and harm black people. So the drug war didn't just start, right? And when you see this thing coming back legal for that, was used as a weapon to harm us, and you see people making millions of dollars. If you think about a conference in Vegas that holds a cannabis conference, the conference center makes money, the hotel makes money, the catering company makes money, all off of legal cannabis, but yet there's still black men in the state of Washington still being arrested. There was 1,800 arrests last year for weed, for simple possession, you guys. Let's just hold on to it.
Wow.
And when you see that, for me, it lets you see that if you take cannabis, I don't mean to ramble on, but if you take cannabis and you take hemp and you take tech, we live in one of the largest tech cities in the world. We have the first state to go legal in hemp or cannabis, and is now getting into hemp production. There should absolutely be some means of taxation coming back from something that was used to harm us back into the community, be in the forms of a community bank, be it in the forms of an equity program from taxation. In Colorado, they use money for education, X, Y, and Z. In the state, they can't. In this state, we can't answer for where the tax money is, but it'd be great to see the state use an equity fund that they say they want to create. If you're going to charge this exorbitant amount of tax, let the black community that was harmed and hunted down and destroyed by this get a percentage of that back. With that percentage, we then can control our education systems, because we can provide better educational tools that are being provided now. We can create jobs for our people. We can create housing for our people. We can create better opportunities that won't, as Seattle has shown by the study, traditionally even pay us to live in the city, while we can create these businesses ourselves and pay ourselves and kind of become a self-sufficient
what is that
system.
industry in Washington State? Like, what's the value of that industry in Washington State? And then are there some things already in motion to open up the markets? We see what's going on. We see on 23rd and Union, people making millions of dollars, with so many of our people, have been incarcerated, right? And that was a way to keep them out of the economy, right? So what's happening right now around that to open it up, if that is an opportunity, and what's the value of it?
So I believe the report just came out. It was like last week before. The state took in $385 million of tax dollars from the legal cannabis space.
And what is that going to?
Exact general fund. It gets thrown into the general fund for the state, so everybody gets it, but where it's supposed to go. So it gets lost. I actually have some public, public records requests from people who've been trying to figure out where this tax money is. And they release a bunch of numbers to me, and it's just shocking. Nobody can answer for it. But if it was, and they say they're addressing the issues of this part, right? And that's something they got to take part on an administrative level. But in states like Colorado, for instance, their education systems in the state are fully funded, 100% across the board. There's no education system in Colorado that's lacking funding. So there's extra money, there's excess money. We can use that as a model here in the state of Washington to say, hey, look, of that $365 million, I would have loved to ask for 10%. But even if you gave us 1%, that's $3.6 million that just came back to the community to build programs, to do things that help. It could be in tech, because tech's going to be what makes the cannabis space and hemp space efficient and makes it money.
Right. So we're not. I mean, a lot of times when people think about legalize, cannabis, they're thinking about basically smoking weed, right?
Right. Yeah.
Medical and now recreational, right? So what you're saying is that there's more industries and jobs related to that.
Yeah. Oh,
Can you speak to some of those, those what are those job opportunities?
Right. So,
or business opportunities for that matter, entrepreneurship opportunities.
So that's the entrepreneurship thing is tricky. If you can create an ancillary business, right? If you understand where Levi came from, right? Levi's made the jeans for the slaves to wear, and then they went to the gold rush, but they're still here, right? Is you got to come up with an ancillary business in the cannabis space. Everybody gonna grow. Treetop grows a bunch of apples, right, and sells juice. Like, everybody's going to find a lane in here. It's the ancillary businesses where the entrepreneur opportunities are, meaning not in the growing and the selling of the cannabis itself, right? Creating consumer packaged goods. Like, what does a good consumer package look like? What is that? What does the packaging look like? Remember, we're in a day and age that's supposed to be economically friendly, and we have a so-called environmental governor, but everything, if you buy in the cannabis space, is wrapped in plastic, single-use plastic at that, twice by law. So there's kind of
plastic.
So plastic, like plastics research, like getting into hemp production, because hemp plastics in themselves are biodegradable, right? So where's the hemp?
Like biochemistry?
Right. That's what I was getting into. Okay. So think about all the industries that would go into just using recreating hemp. Hemp plastics into consumer packaged goods, right? So you got bioengineering, you got chemical engineering, you've got cardboard manufacturing, paper manufacturing. Like, these are all the people and the jobs that people aren't thinking of that you can get in on the side. You've created the packaging, you've got the patent on your hemp product, your plastics now, and now you're doing it. And the thing is, it's not like I don't want people to think I'm talking super science stuff. Like, if you go on Google, you can pretty much figure out and buy the machine that'll turn hemp into plastics and then start making your proposals. Like, these are real doable business on the ancillary side. Because of the state regulations, you can't. There's a capped amount.
Yeah, that's
of,
what I was gonna say. What are the barriers? Because I know a lot of people probably say, "Well, man, I've been dealing with this, so now it's wide open." But what are the numbers of our community's participation? Is it equitable? I mean, we're like.
So in that space, so they call it 502. You're gonna hear me reference 502. 502 means legal cannabis in the state of Washington. I-502. I-502 put a cap on the amount of businesses that could be involved. So if you were a producer, meaning a grower, you couldn't own a retail store, and a retail store couldn't own a producer. So they wanted no vertical integration, which actually ends up hurting the industry, which is a very bad idea. And when the black community gets in, we have to have a vertically integrated system. So you had 3 different opportunities at license: production, which is growing, processor, which is turning it into and packaging it in retail. The barrier to entry, the very first thing, was capital. The amount of money it took, because of the way they set it up, you could have sat on a spot for 3 years and never got approved for your license, so now you've just been paying, right? We just talked about and saw the wealth gap and the pay gap in the city of Seattle. We didn't have the money to get in at that point in time. Second barrier was felonies, right? So they were not allowing people in for felonies for weed when they're starting a weed industry. Those are the scientists. Those are your PhDs. Those are your guys that you wanted in. So it hurt a bunch of people across the board. Then it was like there was crazy. Just the regulations that they put on it were just nuts. So I'm not sure the total number that applied of our community, but out of our community, I believe there's only 4 owners out of 2,000 something licensed in the whole state, which doesn't even represent the demographics of the state again, right? Like, don't make no sense.
Right. Okay, so that's one angle, and do you see these numbers changing? Or how can these numbers change, not just with the industry, but just with the overall income wealth gap? How specifically, I mean, this is a big part of what, Africatown, the whole initiative is really about comprehensive community development from an asset-based perspective, and so that is education. But education for what? If your education is not tied to your economic development, then it must be tied to somebody else's economic development, and we can see that, over time. That's why we were, most of us were brought here, are descendants of people that were brought here for someone else's economic development. Right. So how, part of it is what they're doing, but there's a part about
what we can do.
What we can do. We have to take, responsibility for our existence,
Absolutely.
our destiny to the max that we can, right? And so what does that look like from your perspective, in terms of addressing these issues of increasing our viability in the economy, global economy, right? Not just local, but just global.
For me, it's hemp production, cannabis. Get into the cannabis space because it's the lowest overhead to get in. And with that is starting to train our people up on the simple positions of stuff like bud tenders, being transportation drivers, getting in and getting people to understand too the politics of cannabis and hemp. Those little tiny wins right there become windfalls later on, because as this thing goes and the rules and regulations were set up in 2014 as a knee-jerk reaction, right? Now we can see this true, mature, growing industry, right? So there's massive opportunity for us to get in as a community, be community-based, almost become a church of cannabis. I mean, using that kind of fellowship is what I'm thinking of as a model to move forward, is using the entry-level jobs to get in and learn the industry. From there, how do you take that and learn how to run stores? How do you go from stores to purchasing, from purchasing to production, from production, and growing you can grow your whole system from the ground up right now because of where this space is. It's not legal everywhere. It's going to be legal one day everywhere. It's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry. It's going to be traded as a stock as a commodity on the stock market. So we can start with training at the ground level right now. I mean, even basic soil management positions.
And you're saying definitely making a claim based on the damages that have been previously done to really designate. I think you might have shared some things, or somebody shared something about some things that they're doing in Chicago or Illinois related to that.
Well, everybody's talking about it. Nobody's doing nothing about it. We're actually, and I don't want to be arrogant, we're truly the only group that's speaking at. And when I say we, that's the Black Cannabis Commission. There's a lot of people talking about it, but they're like more smoke friendly, but actually addressing it as the victim of the war on drugs. And because you can't make identifications legally by race, we were never identified as slaves in the Constitution. Nothing changed, right? So we got to understand their coded language and use that. Victims of the war on drugs. And they said, well, how would you identify them? Well, you guys had federal targeted neighborhoods for high drug activity. So if you lived in this community between this many time, you should be able to qualify for easier access into the cannabis space, maybe get rid of licensing fees, make you become a part of the equity program. And that's kind of what at the BCC we're trying to fight for, is that entire package of reparations, I guess, as you would say, but through victims of the war on drugs as the identifying marker, into a community banking type system. That banking system goes out to the entrepreneurs, and bigger than just cannabis too, because if we can start getting sustainable cannabis businesses, we can sustain all kind of other businesses.
So what I also hear you saying is that there's a direct connection between politics and economics. And a lot of times, we have a lot of people in our community say, well, I don't get involved with politics, for whatever reasons, But what I hear is that the politics are driving the economics.
Yeah. For me, I'm late coming to the game of politics. Miss Walden was always, you need to get involved. Nah, I'm good. I don't want nothing to do with that. You was always, you need to get involved. Man, I'm late to the game, and understanding how important it is. When you go down to Olympia, man, and you're the only black man walking around, it's scary. You see it, and you're just like, we're screwed. We don't have any representation in Olympia. And the ones that are down there representing their reputation. They got elected. They're trying to get reelected. They ain't doing nothing.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm hearing clearly also is organize. So I heard educate, get informed, right? But then we got to get together, right? One person having all the information still is not. You could be right, but you right by yourself, right? And so there has to be some coalition, and that's what I see you doing, and that's the work of the Black Cannabis Commission. To count on to deal with the politics and the organizing around that particular economic sector, right? Yeah, okay. Well, that's any other thoughts on that as we wrap this up, as far as, what is your message to, what would you say to our community about just what we going to do going forward?
Education, you guys. It starts and ends with education, man. Save your babies. Pull them out of Seattle Public Schools, the most toxic school district in America. We've got the system. We got the land. We got the churches. They're sitting empty 6 days a week. We got space. We just got to utilize it. We got to utilize our community better and work. And I'm working myself on just even the organizing piece and getting people together. I have all the knowledge and information, but I'm trying to get it out to everybody and move as a unit. We got to change our way of thinking, change our way of doing if we're going to do this. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over, thinking we're going to get different results.
Man, y'all got so we're going to be going into this. I appreciate you coming in to, share your thoughts and around this. It's a big issue as far as economics, but it's like the issue, right, in terms of, locally, globally, whatever, when we think about our future, our children. So we're going to continue to build on this issue, because if we're not focused on our economic sustainability and well-being, then what are we actually focusing on, right? And so with that, we're going to, wrap it up today, live from Africatown Studios. Shout out to Big O behind the board, making sure everything is going accordingly. We got calligraphy in the background too, All right, so with that, we're going to wrap.